joining our live. We'll just wait a couple of moments for a few more people to join and we'll start shortly. Okay. All right, Danny, do you think we should begin?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So, hello everyone and welcome to our webinar, Looking After Your Mental Health During COVID-19. My name is Elise and this is my colleague Danny. So I'll start off with a bit of a small introduction. So Danny and I are currently working as provisional psychologists at Soaring Health, Sports Wellness and Community Centre. And we currently have 2 locations, both inside aquatic centres. So we have one in Craigieburn, which is inside Splash, and we also have a second clinic, which is in Thomastown, and that's located inside the Track Aquatic Centre. So we also have some good news, and our Track Centre is opening again on Thursday, which was closed for a little while due to COVID, so that's exciting. Our clientele mainly consists of NDIS clients in the disability sector. So Danny and I mainly work with children and adolescents with autism, ADHD, learning difficulties, anxiety and depressive symptoms. Soaring Health is really passionate on community health, educating the public and promoting wellbeing. And we have collaborated with Hume City Council today to bring together this webinar to provide you guys with some tips and resources on how to stay well during COVID. So we're very pleased to be presenting to you all today, and we hope you can learn some new ways to improve your wellbeing during this time. The main aims of our webinar is to discuss how COVID in particular and the current restrictions in Victoria have had many effects on the community and on our wellbeing. So we've had to adapt to new norms and had many vast changes to our routines with less social interaction from family and friends. So we're going to be providing some tips on how to actually ask someone if they are doing okay and how to look after ourselves and others during this time. So going from there, I'll give a little bit of an outline of our presentation and what we're going to discuss today. So we'll start off with a little bit of an overview of the pandemic and what our current situation looks like. And going from there, we'll also be discussing psychological distress. So we'll cover what this means, who is at risk, and what the signs of distress actually are and how we can spot them. We'll also be covering how to actually ask someone if they are okay. So we'll give some tips on the do's and don'ts of asking this question. Next, we'll also speak about what we can do to help support others during COVID and how to, in particular, to support someone who might not be doing okay. We'll also be providing some self-care tips on how to look after ourselves during COVID, which is really important. And we'll also provide some resources and helplines that you can reach out to if need be, or to provide to friends and family who it may be helpful for. And then to finish it off, we'll have a bit of a Q&A at the end. So if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to leave them in the comments as we go along, and we'll leave it at the end to answer those questions for you. So I'll start by speaking a little bit about Are You Okay?, which is what we base our presentation off. So as you may be aware, Are You OK Day was recently on the 10th of September. And each year this National Day spreads awareness for mental health, and it promotes action for Australians to ask one another how they are going. So the aim of the foundation is to start a conversation which can change a life for someone who especially may be struggling with life's ups and downs. And I think this is really important, especially during this time where we're going through COVID and there's lots of changes going on for people in their routines. So we'll be touching on that today in terms of how to ask someone, are you okay, later on in our presentation. So I'll hand over to Danny now to start us off.
Thanks, Elise. I'll just share my screen so you guys can see the presentation we put together. Okay. Okay. So, as many of you would be aware of, COVID-19 has brought a lot of challenges, not only to our physical health, but also to our social and emotional well-being. So some of these changes have been smaller and may not have been as impactful, but for other people, it's been quite significant. So these changes can include changes to our work routine. So for some of us, we'll be working from home. Some people have reduced hours, or they may have lost their job entirely. And then on the opposite side, you've got people who may be working more hours and they may be under really stressful circumstances or really uncertain times as well. So we've also got remote learning. So a lot of students have had to adapt to the new circumstances and have had to learn from home. So having their classes delivered online, homework delivered online, not having a teacher really, and being in the classroom. So this isn't just hard on the kids, it's also hard on some parents who may have had to, take on an extra role in their children's education, who may not have, a lot of experience with hands-on things like that. So that can also be really hard. And then we've got physical distancing. So I'm sure many are aware of the 1.5 metre rule that we've had to stick to, but we've also haven't been able to see our family and friends like we would love to, I'm sure. We haven't been able to go to the shops or go to sporting events or our community sports programs, things like that. So any one of these changes can be really distressing and really challenging and quite overwhelming, really. And this can cause us to feel a number of things, including stressed, anxious, angry, frustrated, depressed, or just overall overwhelmed with feelings of uncertainty. So who's at risk of feeling this way? The answer is everyone. It's completely normal for anyone to feel the effects of this pandemic and all the changes that come along with it. In saying that, there are some individuals who may be more vulnerable to feeling these negative effects, and these are the guys that we want to just pay close attention to. So that could be single parents, families or individuals with special needs, those who are experiencing financial hardship, people with pre-existing mental health conditions, people who have experienced great loss or grief. So that can include, the death of a loved one or even separation or divorce. And people who have been isolated or quarantined for prolonged periods of time. So this could be people who live alone, or could even be people who haven't had any reason to branch out into the world and have been, stuck at home for months. So those are the people that, it's worth checking in with. So first of all, what is distress? And distress can kind of cover a range of really unpleasant emotions and feelings. So the signs of distress, this is a kind of a hard topic to address when we don't know the individual personally. Here's where we really encourage you to trust your gut and go with your instincts. When it comes to our loved ones, you know them best. If you have a feeling something's not quite right, you more than likely are right. So stick with it and check in on them. There's no harm in doing so. In saying that, there are some definite signs and red flags that we can be aware of. So one of the biggest signs, probably one of the most noticeable ones, is any consistent changes in behavior that are really unusual for that individual. So are they sleeping more or less? Have their eating habits changed? Are they not socializing like they used to? Not texting back as often, not returning your phone calls, not replying on social media? Are they staying in their room a lot more? Are they doing anything that's really out of the ordinary for them? Not exercising or doing the things that they once did. So the next thing is disinterest in hobbies or things they once enjoyed. So upon conversation, do they not seem interested in those things anymore? Have they lost interest in pastime? So maybe they were really into music and they're no longer interested in that, or exercise. Are they stopping doing the things that they once loved? Are they keeping up with their self-care and hygiene? So this is one that we really look out for as provisional psychologists as well. So maintaining your appearance, so having a shower, brushing your hair, brushing your teeth, looking after yourself. I wouldn't be too alarmed if someone were to, maybe stay in yesterday's clothes once or twice. That's not really a sign for concern. However, if they were consistently doing so and they're consistently not keeping up with their self-care and hygiene like they normally do, that could be cause for concern. Also, repeating negative phrases or expressing concerns for the future. So they could be making comments such as, why do I bother? Or this will never end. What's the point? I give up. These phrases can be a red flag that something more, distressing is going on for that person and they may need some more support. And the last point I wanted to raise was about changes in their mood. So are they more agitated or frustrated than normal? Are they experiencing mood swings that, again, are out of the ordinary? Are they more fatigued and tired and unable to get excited about things they once got excited about? So, again, like the previous topics, it's not just about once-offs, it's about consistency and things that are really out of the ordinary for that individual. All right, Elise.
All right, thank you, Danny. So going on from there, I'm going to be discussing how to actually start the conversation. So you may have picked up on a sign, or a few signs for that matter, that a close friend or a loved one might not be doing okay. So how do we actually go about asking them the question, how are you going, or are you okay? So before you actually ask someone, it's good to consider whether you're in the right headspace to do so. So be sure to check in with yourself first to make sure you are in the right headspace to be able to sit down and listen. If you feel as though you have your own stresses going on at the moment, you may consider telling someone close to the person to check in for you. So I think this is a really important point to consider, especially in terms of self-care and just to check in where you're at and just keeping a point of reflection. So you just don't want to be asking somebody else if you're not in the right headspace too. So going from there, I'm going to look at some of the do's and don'ts. So the key points on what to do, picking the right time and place to start the conversation is important. So you want to make sure you have a private space and that you have enough time to talk to the person without feeling rushed. So you might go for a walk together, you could catch up after work, or even make time to chat over the phone. If the timing isn't right, consider organising a more suitable time to catch up with them. Secondly, you want to be prepared. So ensure that you go in with an open mind and be willing to genuinely listen and give the person as much time as they need to talk to you. Remember that you will not have all of the answers and that this is okay. The most important thing is that you are there to listen and provide support to them. So when you're actually asking the question, a good point to consider is to mention the key points of concern. So this can be a really good discussion point to start with. So you might say something like, you seem less chatty than usual, how are you doing? Or you haven't been yourself lately, are you okay? You may even simply just go in and ask them, hey, how have you been going lately? So in comparison to the usual, how are you? Which often leads to the normalized answer of, yeah, I'm good, thanks. This change of wording provides a more open discussion for the person to open up about themselves and be a little bit more vulnerable with you. So moving on to the don'ts. So what to avoid doing when asking, are you okay? So the first point I've got there is try not to immediately solve the issue. So you want to make sure that you have the time to sit and listen to what's going on for your friend or loved one when you're having this conversation. So this ensures that they do feel heard before trying to rush the conversation and coming up with issues to try and solve it. So be sure to sit and take the time to hear them out. Secondly, we've got deflect the issue. So by using statements such as, you know, it could be worse or you'll be fine, these types of statements can invalidate how a person's feeling. So a person may be left feeling as though their emotions are not important, and it can make it difficult for them to actually open up again when somebody else asks them a question in relation to this problem, or if they're asked, are you okay, by somebody else. So that's a really important point, trying not to deflect from the issue. Another point on that as well, it's also about trust. So if you're deflecting from the issue, it may be hard for the person to be able to trust others when they do talk about it again. So it's really important to try and keep on topic about what they might be going through and hear them out. So the next point we have on that is changing the topic. So this can also worsen a situation, and the person may not feel heard and feel as though you may not care about what they're going through. So ensure that you do stay on track and listen attentively so that they have a space that they can discuss their feelings. Okay. So the next topic I'll be speaking about, change the slide, is what you can do for others during COVID. So this section kind of answers how to follow up when somebody's not doing okay after actually asking them how they are doing. So I'm going to talk about 3 different scenarios. So the first one is what to do if someone says no, so they're not going okay. So in this scenario, you want to ensure that you take what the person says seriously. So you want to listen with an open mind and try not to rush the conversation or to interrupt. So a couple of those points that I mentioned before are really important. So some helpful statements that you could use would be, I'm here for you, or I'm happy to listen. The next step is to use active listening. So you may not have heard this term before. So active listening refers to any verbal or non-verbal signs that actually show someone that you are listening to them when they are speaking. So some examples of this include nodding, regular eye contact, phrases such as during conversation, and lastly, repeating back what you've heard in your own words. So you may say something like, it sounds as though you were feeling sad today. Am I right in saying so? So at the end, you may also ask to clarify whether or not your understanding was right, to make sure that they do feel heard in terms of what you guys may be talking about. So that's the scenario in terms of what to do if someone says no at a first point. And then once you've taken the time to kind of understand what's been going on for the person, sorry, Danny, one slide back. Once you've taken the time to understand what's been going on for the person, the next step would be to encourage them to take action. So a good way to start this would be to collaborate with them and to think of what the next steps might be. So you could simply ask them the question, where can we go from here? Secondly, you would want to offer your support. So an example of this could be to ask, what can I do to help? Or how can I support you during this time? Thirdly, you may suggest engaging in positive activity. So you could explore things that they enjoy doing to relax or to wind down, such as watching a movie, taking a bath, or even going for a walk. If they have been feeling down for 2 weeks or more, encourage them to seek professional guidance. So you could ask them if they have considered speaking to a GP or a counsellor. And ensuring that you talk about professionals in a positive light is also really important. So these professionals are there to help and support anybody that are going through a difficult time with an open ear and a helping hand, no matter how small the issue may seem. So there is lots of stigma in seeking professional help. So encouraging this can make a really big difference for someone who may be going through a tough time. And lastly, you want to check in regularly to see how the person is going. So you could call them in a couple of days to check in on them. And you may even set a reminder in your phone just to be sure that you do check in regularly with them. So if they are struggling, you might try to call them sooner rather than waiting a week, especially if you feel as though you've noticed a lot of the signs of psychological distress that Danny has mentioned earlier. So another helpful question that you could ask to check in would be, how have you been feeling since we last spoke? And remind them that you are always there to chat if need be. So this shows that you are there to support them and follow up with things that may be difficult. It also builds trust in your relationship, and you can show that you are a reliable friend who generally cares for them and just want to see that they are doing okay. So I think that's a really important tip. All right, so the next scenario, we have what to do if they say yes, but you are not convinced. So in terms of the question, are you okay? They may say yes, but there's a couple of signs there that don't really convince you that they might be doing okay. So the first tip is try not to take this personally. So a person might not be ready or feel comfortable to speak yet, and that's okay. The second tip is to respect their decision. So try not to force the conversation and give them space to talk when they are ready. Let them know that you are there to listen. So you could also say something like, I'm always here to chat if you need, or it's okay if you don't want to talk at the moment, but remember you can call me anytime. So just letting them know those little points that you're there to support them can even be a big change as well. If the person is hesitant to speak their mind, you may also ask if there's someone else that they would prefer to talk to, or if they've spoken about this to anyone before. So this ensures that they have a trusted person that they can speak to and that they do feel at ease with, just in case you might not be the person they want to open up with, which is okay. But yeah, then you'll have a bit of an insight as to whether they have some support on the side, which is a really good point to check in with. You also want to consider some of the warning signs. So if there is still a cause for concern, you could let a close friend or a family member know your observations and get them to check in for you. And lastly, yeah, be sure to check in with them in a couple days just to see how they are going. Asking one time is really, really helpful, but being sure to check in with them a second time, a couple days later or a week later, having that follow-up is just as important, because if they've gone downhill or they're still feeling the same and nobody's really checked in on them, then you might be the person that's actually done that for them. So checking in is a really great tip to use as well. Okay, and last scenario we have is what to do if they say yes. So if you notice that there's no cause for concern, then this is the best outcome. So it's a genuine yes, they are doing okay. Embrace the positivity and encourage the conversation about what the best part of their week has been. Yeah, back over to Danny.
Okay, so you might be wondering, what can I do to look after myself during COVID-19? How do I self-care? So it's a broad topic and there's so many things that you could do to self-care, but we'll go through a few. So the first one is journaling. So you might be more familiar with, diary entries and things like that. So writing out how you've been feeling, all your thoughts, can be a really helpful way of dumping all that's in your head after a really long, crazy day, putting it on paper and then moving on. This can be really helpful for those of you who feel like you get stuck and relive things over and over. Another really helpful tip is scheduling. So in all this pandemic, our typical lives have been quite disrupted. So bringing some normality and some routine back into our lives can be really, really helpful. This can help increase our mood and increase our sense of productivity. Another way to do that is to make a to-do list. So this is also a really great way of increasing our sense of productivity. So write down a few things that you really want to get done for the day, and then tick it off as you go. So it's really important that when you're doing this, you want to make sure that your tasks are really manageable and they're realistic. There's no point in making a list that's full of tasks that there's no way you could achieve. It's not healthy. So when you're doing so, it's also really important to be kind to yourself. Even if you don't achieve everything, that's okay. The next tip is to be available for deep breathing and mindfulness. So mindfulness is a really big one that we would encourage everyone do during this time. So being mindful is all about being in the present. So this is really good for those of you who might dwell on things in the past or might get really concerned about things that are happening in the future. Deep breathing, yoga, meditation, it's all about being present and being in the now. So an example of deep breathing is diaphragmatic breathing. So this is really good at controlling the nervous system. So for those of you who are experience anxiety and your heart might race really quickly and you have a hard time catching your breath, this is a really good one. So one way you can do that is by placing your hand on your stomach, and with every deep inhale, you should feel your hand go out, and then on every exhale, it goes back in. That's when you know you're getting really big, deep breaths that are really, really good for you. The next tip is to move your body. So I think when you see tips like this, a lot of people's minds go straight to exercise. And whilst we would strongly encourage that at any point of time, this is also just about moving. So for those who might be working from home or sitting at a desk or sitting down for a long period of time, you can forget to move around and do things. And moving around is really great for not only your body, but also for your mental health. Taking up a new hobby or learning a new skill. So this is a really great way of curbing the boredom. For some of you who might have a lot more time on your hands, taking up a new hobby like learning a new language, learning a new recipe, instrument, something new and exciting can be a really great way to self-care during COVID-19. This could also be just things like face masks, bubble baths, anything that you enjoy. The important thing about this tip is doing something that makes you happy, something new, something exciting, or old and loved, doesn't really matter, just something that makes you happy. Something I quite like doing is using a self-care checklist. So oftentimes we become really overwhelmed by our feelings that we forget to check in with ourselves and contemplate what's going on, what might be causing us to feel this way. So some questions you might ask yourself are, did I get enough sleep? Have I had any water today? Have I eaten something nutritious and good for my body? Have I been outside and gotten fresh air? Have I spoken to another person? Have I got up and moved? Have I done something that's made me happy today? Going through, these are just a couple of options, but going through a list of such as that is really great at kind of pinpointing where you might be able to improve and where you can increase your mental health. And the last tip I really wanted to make is in regards to your own perceptions and your own thoughts. So don't be too hard on yourself. Take it easy. None of us have ever experienced something like this, and it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have bad days. Just because you might have more time on your hands doesn't mean you have to have a perfectly clean home or have to have mastered a new skill or have to have done anything. It's okay to take it easy, and it's okay to have days where you're less productive. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. This is a list of resources and references that we thought would be quite helpful. We are going to leave a copy of the PDF in the comments below so you guys can have a look in your own time. But thank you so much for coming and hearing us out. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you were able to take something away from this presentation. We know we kind of dumped a lot of information out there, so it's okay if you can't remember it all. Even if you take one thing away, that'll be great. We'll be sticking around for some questions, so if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below and we'll answer them. Elise, did you have anything?
No, that's great, Danny. I think we've got a couple of questions here, so maybe we'll just jump straight into it. One of the questions we have is there anything that we can do to help cheer up family members that are not feeling okay, but don't feel like doing anything, and they don't want to talk to someone? So my take on this, if they don't want to talk to someone in terms of professional guidance, a really good tip might be just for you to go and talk to them. So a family member, a close friend, or if you've picked up on this yourself, you might be the first point of contact. So if you can even just find the time to sit down with them, maybe find out what's going on for them and understand them a little bit more deeper, you might be able to make a little bit of a change and be their support as well. So you know your family best and the changes in their behavior. So yeah, I think just really understanding what's going on for them can even just make the smallest difference. So if they're not feeling comfortable about speaking to a professional, you can still try to encourage this, but ultimately it's their decision at the end of the day. So yeah, Danny, do you want to add on to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you covered it really well. When it comes to family members, we do have that advantage of being able to, we know them. So you know what makes them tick, you know their personality, you know, are they stubborn? Is there something that you can use to kind of encourage them? If they're not feeling okay and you can see that they're really struggling, even doing small things to help them out. So if, for example, if they're a parent and you know that they're struggling, not just, you know, being a parent, but in general, offering to, I know, you know, with restrictions, things can be quite hard, but if you're in the position that you can, you know, look after the kids while they go for a walk, or bring dinner to them, or help in some way that doesn't directly look like you are giving them help, that doesn't look like you're, you know, invading on them in that way, just little things like that, you don't realize how much of a big impact they can have. Yeah,
exactly. And if they don't feel like doing anything, I think as well, trying to encourage the things that they do like doing. So even as basic as watching a movie and sitting together with them, if that's something they enjoy doing, that could just be a really good starting point in trying to get them to engage in things that they would usually enjoy. So yeah, okay. We'll move on to the next question. So how can you encourage someone to seek help, and what can you say to convince them if they don't agree? Well, yeah, I think this is a really important topic. So encouraging professional help is super important. So being able to speak about it in a positive light. You might even consider saying that everything that does happen in counselling or in psychology, it is kept confidential and private. So it's a personal thing, just as you wouldn't go around telling your friends or some people that you're seeing a GP for your own physical reasons. You might also consider keeping a counsellor as a private aspect of your life. So that might be a factor that would encourage them to go. So it's a personal interaction for them. And they are there to listen. So this is without judgment and to provide genuine care and support for the person. So you could even consider organising a joint visit to go with them so that they have your support to go together, or they might go with a family member to make them feel a little bit more at ease. So that's a really good way to be able to encourage someone to seek professional help, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to not only come from a place of, you know, you should see someone because you seem like you're struggling. Seeking professional help can also be a great way of improving yourself, even if you're not struggling with something. You know, seeing a GP just because you want to improve, you know, you want to keep being well. So you could encourage it also from that standpoint. You know, when was the last time you saw your GP? When was the last time you went and had a checkup? You know, maybe it's worth just getting one, get out of the house, make it really informal, not scary and like they need to go do it. You know, make them or encourage them to want to go for another reason. That can also be really helpful.
Yeah. And adding on to that as well, like, because we are going through COVID and it has been difficult to actually be face-to-face and in person, we also have the option of using telehealth. So you doing a video online chat has actually been really wonderful. Danny and I have been doing it in the recent months, and it's been super helpful, especially for parents with kids and families that have big households that are very busy. And yeah, it just removes some of the barriers of actually going into a clinic. Sometimes that can just be an overwhelming feeling. So we're really, really lucky to be able to use platforms like this, such as Zoom, to be able to have those types of meetings with people during this time with all social isolation and physical distancing and whatnot. So yeah, that could be another tip to convince them to seek some help as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Next question.
Yeah, so I think this might be lucky last. So we've got, what things do we like to do to look after ourselves, and how long should we spend on self-care? Do you want to go first, Danny?
Yeah, sure. Well, personally, there's many things I do to self-care. Some days I'll have maybe like a pampering day. So you'll exfoliate and you'll do like the full, like, you know, the whole 9 yards just to feel good. You know, even if you're not leaving the house, you do it all anyway. Maybe you'll get glam, put on something nice, spray some perfume, you know, help yourself feel more confident. Even things like doing, I know it sounds cliche, but like doing yoga or doing meditation or doing like a quick workout. You know, during the time you might not feel great, but afterwards you're put in such a great mood, you know, all those endorphins. So yeah, can't think of anything else. I'm sure there's lots, but right now I can't quite think. What do you do for self-care, Elise?
Yeah, love it. Well, two recent things that I've started doing. I started painting, which has been really fun. Gets you a little bit out of the zone and you don't have any worries or stresses on your mind. So you'd be surprised how long you can be doing something like painting and just forget about hour after hour what you're doing. So I think that's a really big self-care tip. And the second thing as well that I picked up was bike riding. So having lots of free time during COVID has given me the opportunity to start some exercise. So going for bike rides, even if it's just for half an hour or so, to get your mind off things. And yeah, like Danny said, get those endorphins running. Yeah, it can be a really good start to your day and really good self-care tips. So yeah, some of the ones that we use, but
yeah. There's an endless list. And in terms of how long you should self-care, it's a tricky one because each person has different needs and they need different levels of self-care. I think it's more important to do it regularly rather than to do it, you know, for a certain amount of time. So if you, for example, have had a really long day, you know, you might not have a lot of time to do it. So doing something in general at all is already one step closer in the right direction. So ideally, if you had all the time in the world, your whole day would be a self-care day. So it's just any pocket of time you can find to do something that you enjoy and to do something for you, something that makes you happy, then yeah, take every opportunity you can.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's getting 10 minutes of sunlight and going outside on a little bit of a lunch break or something like that, can make all the difference. So having that time to take a break is, yeah, super important, especially during this time. Yeah, I think that's all the questions that we have.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks everyone for all the questions. It's been really great, and hopefully we'll be able to do another one of these in the coming future.
Yeah, fantastic. I hope you guys all enjoyed it.